Da, 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. And if you've never popped into one of my lives, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside and just coming in my live. I don't know about you guys, but every once in a while, I get this crazy palm scratch. In my younger days when I used to fill my life up with things like bingo, right? Everybody would say, "Oh, Cindy, that's a good sign. That means you're gonna win a big one." And it's really funny that I'm thinking of that today because I was making a mental note on is it a commercial advertising that comes on in between the content that I take in. They're like little commercials, and one of them is produced here in Manitoba, and it's a way to dissuade people, and I love it, right? Dissuade people from gambling, to let people know what the odds are. And these videos are really kind of cute. It's most part it's just people who rely on the odds, you know what I mean? Like there was one commercial where one lady just takes the seventh seat, the seventh item on the menu, and she eats at 7 o'clock every night, and then at the end she's ordered something, the seventh item on the menu, and it's something really disgusting like eel soup or something like that. And and it was just a way to help people just to take notice every once in a while in those self-sabotaging, quite often, moments that we have when we want to escape reality. We want to escape the problem at hand. And I'm no different than anybody else. And again, we're talking about change this week. And something to take note about change is that we don't like it, do we? It's uncomfortable quite often. Sometimes it takes effort. Sometimes it takes money. Lots of times it takes bravery, right? Change in the moment is usually not fun. So we procrastinate in that because we don't want to move into what's uncomfortable, what's painful. And if you're anything like me, as highly sensitive, somebody who's empathic, I kind of build my life, even to this day, I build my life to make it safe and to make it as comfy for myself as I possibly can. Because we know that life can be crazy town. And we also know quite often when we're down, right? That's quite often when we're going to get that little bit of an extra boot or that little bit of extra effort or sorry, that little bit extra disaster that comes into our lives. For me, you know, they were the worst, when you're just down already, when you're just at your lowest of lows, or you're in excruciating pain. And when you're at that point, then another one comes at you, and you don't even have time to come to the surface and grab a breath for what you're dealing with in the moment, right? And the next thing you know, you're getting it again. For me, it was a little bit like that during holidays, uh, and again, if you're anything like me, it just seems to come along with the territory. That it is that little bit extra dig sometimes that our holidays are lots of times ruined. And it's a sad thing to happen, but for us people that we can take note of what's going on. There's great insight in that. And there's an opportunity to recognize the sources of these little, and they're not even hiccups, because they are with intent, right? And sometimes I look at it in a way that somebody is trying to bring out change for me. And that's not always the case, but that's the way that I like to look at it, right? Because I understand that not everybody's in the same place, right? But I also understand that it takes all kinds to make the world. And even though we're not in the same place in this moment, one day I believe, right, that everybody will be in the same place. And so, right, I drum up a little bit of forgiveness, a little bit of tolerance, quite often distance, almost always distance. I'm not usually big in being overly generous with extra chances. And right, it was a saying, a quote from one of the ladies that I follow her in, the Empoweress, right? She's really uh, on point for the most part in how I relate in my own way of thinking. And it's hard too, because each one of us is so dynamic. But when you can find those commonalities in other people who are doing their own work. But she said that buying is not trying. And for lots of us, you know, we give those second chances. Somebody say, "Oh, I'm sorry." Right? And it's in our hearts just to give another chance, or to say, oh my goodness, they just have not evolved that far yet. Or maybe with a little bit of rubbing off on me, maybe I could be that example for her or him. And right, we put in a lot of tolerance in that. And I believe that we should have a little bit of tolerance, because how can we feel anything out to see if there's a crack or a moment or an inkling of understanding that might show that there's possibility of some movement there, right? It's not, what do they call it? Plato's cave, right? That kind of idea. But I believe in, right? And it's because I have been in that mix, because I have been in that uncomfortable, because I read into things, because I feel into things, that I'm able to not bring up a little bit of courage, right? Even though it does take a little bit of courage, it's just in the understanding that there's no other way, right? There's no other way for me to make some movement than to see the truth in things, right? Or to the very best of my ability to read into something, to right. And I don't make those decisions, those judgments easily, and I don't do them on the fly. I am a feeler, and right, and being somebody who appreciates that my emotional well-being, physical well-being, and mental well-being depends on me being able to not to ruffle the feathers, not to tick people off, not to agitate them. That little bit of people pleasing that is, well, it's a piece of me, right? I work at it. I do work at it, but I don't think it is a terrible bad trait if it's causing um, movement forward rather than being a detriment and holding me back, because I am somebody who will make that decision, right? Who will make that change. even if it's not comfortable, even if I don't want to do it. Why? Because I know there isn't another isn't another choice. And so I just do it in that. So in making these choices, I understand in the moment it's going to be painful. It's going to be uncomfortable. I got better things to do. I got the remote control and a blanket and a bowl of popcorn waiting for me, right? But in that prioritizing as to what's going to do the best for me, right? Because in the end, I'm doing this for me, but the ripple effect is, right, that my family will be affected by that. The people who kind of hang out with me and, right, join me when I'm doing these lives and these podcasts. And it's a chain reaction, right? It really is. And I heard that terminology this week, not to break that chain, but it's important, right? Because if that chain is not broken, then there is no opportunity for change, right? So sometimes we do have to go down those side branches. Sometimes in our experimenting, right, we have to look for a better way, a more logical way, a more cost efficient way. And that's the change, because once we make that decision to go that way, right, things immediately start changing. It starts prepping, right? Like prepping for the change to make it so that, right, we can make that movement without all being crazy town, without all that hairy, scary, with all that self sabotage and all that self talk. Because you know what? I can talk myself out. I did it today. Talk myself out of something that I had said that I was going to do. Right? So it's important for us to, it's just to put that action in, because we can, right, creativity and ideas and inventions, really, dime a dozen. I come across them all the time. And you know what? Then I come across them all the time because these are lessons that are being offered to me and I can share them, but because they're in that area that I just don't want to expand out because it's a little bit uncomfortable, right? Somebody's going to give me the eye, or roll their eyes up in the head, or say something not nice, and then the next thing you know, somebody else is doing it because, well, because they can, right? Because they are drumming up that courage, and they know just as well for them that it's going to be uncomfortable. But, right, they maybe done it so many times that maybe it's not so uncomfortable anymore. Maybe they're in a state in their life where they're just so desperate for this little piece of information that, right, they tried it, they felt it worked, and they want to gift it out there, right? It's just like coming across a great recipe and sharing it with your family, or trying a new product on the grocery store shelf and just telling everybody how amazing it is. I just tried the Heinz pickle ketchup. It makes me want to open up a burger joint and use it as my secret sauce, my special sauce. Oh my goodness, it's at a promo price right now, right? Almost like 50% off of what it's going to be after the promo. So I I kind of went a little nutso and I stocked up on them. Fabulous. If they made them in the big ketchups, I would be all over it. Yeah, but it is like that, in that word of mouth that we get to recognize something that works well, right? Something that might not even help us, but, it may help somebody else in an issue or a problem or in a stall in their own lives, right? Because Cindy wasn't brave enough to come in and just spew it, that she's dancing around the bushes. And you guys, if you guys had come into my lives even a year ago, you wouldn't have gotten any of this because I was seriously dancing around every topic because every topic was so scary in its bigness. It was so scary in its ammo, because it could be ammo, right? Where people might say something mean or think something totally opposite and decide to give me a piece of their minds. And right? It's still a process for me. I've been at this for over 10 years now. But, right? Again, we make those choices. And when we make those choices, change starts to come about. And we have to be willing, right? To ride those waves, to adapt and conquer, and to more importantly, move with that to keep that momentum going, right? Get past that scary stuff, get past that difficult stuff, get to yourself to that point where, right, Cindy gets to step aside and those other parts of me can take over. And, that is my optimistic idea every time that I come in, right? That it is like, oh my goodness, we're just going to get into it right away. We're going to just flow so nice. I'm going to come back in, get a lesson for myself, give myself a thumbs up because I kicked it, right? When it's not always the case, right? It's not even close to being always the case, right? every once every once in a while. But I understand it's in that partnership with myself. And if I didn't take the lessons at the very least, I wouldn't know to bring those subjects up so that my other parts could come in and fill in those gaps where I haven't filled them yet. Right? I appreciate where I am in the moment. I accept where I am in the moment. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop changing, that I'm not going to start or stop moving towards those things that I want or the things that I think I need or those things that I just dream for myself and for others. Because some of the things that I dream for myself, like wanting to be a philanthropist, well, right? You need that to be a philanthropist. But I don't even move towards that, right? I can keep saying I want to be that, but I have to move towards that. And when you don't have that, you have to be creative in how you're doing your philanthropic work, right? And for me, it is in the understanding uh, of the little drummer boy, the little drummer girl, right? That they had or he had nothing to offer, nothing to give baby Jesus, right? As a birthday gift. But he had his drum and he played his drum, and we all have the opportunity, right, to contemplate when these ideas come for us and just go, don't say, oh, I wish I could, right? You find a way to get it done. You adapt, you conquer, and it might not be as pretty, it might not be as expensive, but you know what? It's going to be just as heartfelt maybe even more, because you gave it from a state of nothing, right? And so when you look at things that way, I'm a philanthropist in this moment. Every time I come in and hit that go live button, Cindy, right? I keep this in mind, so that I'm not dancing around the subject, so that I can come in and I can just let it just come out the way it wants to come out, without me trusting in the chance, right? Gambling that everything is going to be okay. Trusting on that lucky scratchy palm, right? That it's all flowing. No. That saying, God helps those who help themselves. I am not a religious person, right? But I believe there is something or someone steering this ship. And my attention, right? Maybe it should be on that character, but in this moment it's not, because it's concentrating on the lessons. And I think, right, that character would like me to be in the lessons, because right, he doesn't need my help, right? But oh my goodness, if I get this right, right? If things click the way that I move towards, no guarantees that it's going to work out the way I want to, but I have more of a chance than if I didn't do anything at all. If I just sat on that couch with that remote control, right? I have um, well, it seems silly now. I kind of have a purpose, don't I? You know, I've been doing this for over 10 years now, and it doesn't look like anything that even remotely from when I started. But oh my goodness, I am so grateful that it worked out the way it did. And for the most part, it was just feeling into it and taking in lessons and trusting in the in the sources of those lessons, if they resonated with me, and then move in those directions. And every time I felt comfortable, right, then you make a little bit of move. Because you know what? If you don't make a little bit of move, you're going to get a big move. Guaranteed it's going to be a big move. I would much rather to make those small adjustments for myself. Understanding, right? I'm creating the best human being I possibly can. How hard could that be, right? For some, very hard, right? Very heartbreaking, very lonely, right? But if you're not willing to, right, even make a choice, then that's the choice. And there's another quote there: what you don't what you don't change, you choose. It's so good. It hit me really good the first time I heard it, because it reflects on those things in your life that you would probably prefer that were not in your life, like the pink ice donuts with the sprinkles, right? Or, well, there's lots of things that I would like to be different in my life. But again, unless I put myself in that direction, make those little bit of movements, understanding, yeah, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I don't have a choice, right? Because I'm not there yet, and I'm not a give up kind of person. And now I'm kind of stubborn and determined, and right. And so what do? We just carry on, right? We carry on understanding that this could have been a different story, because if I didn't make some of the choices that I did, I think maybe I might have been doing some detrimental harm to my own well being. I also think that, I probably might have given up, right? But because I made myself comfortable in the process, because I did it in the baby steps, that I adapt and conquered and just knew that I had to make little changes here and there, right? I found a way, and I don't know necessarily if it was the right way, but it's the right way for me in this moment, because it allows me to be comfortable in this process. And when you're making change, when you're doing the choices, it's not a comfortable thing, right? So, you know, forgive me if I have a pink ice donut every once in a while, right? And get distracted in something when I know I could be putting that effort into something that's really going to serve me or someone or something, right? A little bit better than my metal detecting videos. But then again, right? These are the little tricks for me that make this enjoyable, right? Make this enjoyable, because if I wasn't doing this, I wouldn't be taking in the lessons. And if I wasn't taking in the lessons, I wouldn't lead those few moments to, right, decompress and bring myself back to the main branch. And then I would be able to watch these other great adventures, right? Because it's just not in the mindset, it's just not in the movement forward, right? It's just not in the understanding the emotions, because if I just did that, that would be crazy town. That would be crazy town. Okay, you guys, that's it for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow. Um, Time is slipping by. I am having a hard time grasping. Yesterday, I woke up and it was pitch black outside. It was just pitch black. And I looked at the clock and it said it was after 6 o'clock at night. And I went, oh my goodness, what did I do? Right after um, having taken a nap and slept too long and having to stay up all night to get back onto my regular routine. What did I do? One day later, I slept all night, slept all day, and woke up at 6 o'clock at night. It is what it is, right? Can't beat myself up. But it made me wonder, why did I do that? Why did I sleep like 19 hours? Made myself a cup of coffee, looking out the window. I'm going, oh my goodness, the world is dead tonight. There's no traffic, no nothing. That there must be a hockey game going on. 2 hours later, 2 hours later, I recognized I had gotten up at 6 o'clock in the morning. It wasn't 6 o'clock at night. How could I have made such a silly mistake in that? But I was convinced that I had slept 19 hours, and I was convinced that I had lost an entire day. I didn't. I didn't. I just lost the main branch of the tree for a few minutes, and it happens. You guys have a great night, and we'll see you.